This isn't a rumor drifting through tabloids. This is a document signed in silence, a decision made in 2020 that may have just detonated Prince Harry's entire future, and he didn't even realize he was lighting the fuse.
The real story. I mean, that's the excitement of writing these sort of books, that in the end, nothing beats the truth, the real fact.
Family, except for her mother, they're both essentially the same person. So you deserve each other on Christmas.
On Bowers, it's called Revenge, Meghan, Harry and the War Between the Windsors. We can speak to the man himself, the author, this morning.
John Bauer just dropped something that changes how every single moment of the Sussex story looks in hindsight. Not a fight, not a headline, not a bad week, a structure, a setup. A legal and financial framework quietly rebuilt in 2020 while the world was distracted by royal drama, California dreams, and Netflix millions. Harry signed it, Meghan understood it. And now suddenly, every strange move, every quiet separation, every business shift starts lining up like dominoes falling in slow motion back then. It looked like chaos. They were fleeing royal life, scrambling for security, trying to reinvent themselves as independent power players. Deals were flying in. Netflix, Spotify, speaking gigs, foundations, press tours, everything happening at once. But beneath that frenzy, something else was being built, something far more permanent than a streaming contract, something that didn't expire when projects failed. And here's the brutal part. Harry went along with it without fully understanding what it actually meant. Now jump forward to this year. Meghan quietly revives her crisis PR team. Harry starts sleeping in hotels instead of the mansion they own. Whispers of separate bedrooms, separate schedules, separate lives. People dismissed it as stress, pressure, media noise. But Bauer's findings flipped that entire explanation on its head. This wasn't sudden chaos. This was delayed impact. To understand why this matters, you have to understand who Tom Bauer is and why people in power fear him. This isn't some gossip blogger recycling internet theories. This is a man who spent 4 decades dismantling reputations brick by brick. Media moguls, billionaires, untouchables. He doesn't rush. He doesn't speculate. He waits, verifies, then drops the truth when it can't be ignored. When he says he found something, it's because he followed the paper trail until it stopped running.
Your eyes in. Now, if you were born in the sunny hills of California, your code is 104. It's been that way for...
Bauer's work on Meghan wasn't based on whispers. He spoke to over 80 people who worked with her directly. Staff, insiders, professionals who watched everything unfold behind closed doors. Not admirers, not fans. People who saw the mechanics. And what they described wasn't chaos, it was precision. So when Bauer points to 2020 and says this is when everything changed, it lands differently. Because that revision wasn't about love. It wasn't about protection. It wasn't about fairness. It was about control. Most people assume separations are simple math. Split it down the middle, walk away bruised but equal. That assumption collapses here. What was rewritten doesn't just decide who gets money. It decides who owns the story, who owns the brand, who controls future narratives, who profits from past pain. Everything built is the Sussexes, the documentaries, the podcasts, the speaking deals, even Harry's own memoir. All of it falls under that structure. And inside that structure, Meghan isn't a partner. She's the operator. Her name comes first. She runs the business. She takes the larger share, not 50-50. Tilted. Intentionally, and here's where it gets chillin'. None of this existed when they married. The original setup was different, balanced. This was rewritten later after they left the monarchy, after the California move, after the entertainment money appeared on the horizon. That timing isn't random. In 2020, Meghan was entering a world she knew well: Hollywood contracts, branding, leverage, exit clauses. Harry wasn't. He came from a world where marriage meant permanence, where institutions absorbed risk, where personal wealth didn't require strategic defense. One person walked into that negotiation seasoned, the other walked in trusting.
Since then, based on polling and media coverage, how would you describe the trajectory of Harry and Meghan's reputations?
People who witnessed Meghan's first marriage ending describe something revealing. She didn't rush, she didn't improvise, she dissected every line. Teams of professionals reviewed everything. Nothing was left vague. And when it was over, she walked away with one lesson burned into her approach to life. Never allow your earning power to be vulnerable. Fast forward, streaming deals announced, Archewell launched, money flowing from multiple directions, and suddenly the structure changes. placing Meghan in control of the operation and securing her larger share if everything collapses. That's not romance. That's risk management. And now follow the money. The massive figures people love to quote were never guaranteed. They were performance-based ceilings. Projects were canceled. Promises weren't delivered. The actual revenue was far lower than the myth. And right when that reality hit, something fascinating happened. Meghan began building independently. A lifestyle brand, hers alone. A podcast deal, hers alone. Books, hers alone. No shared ownership. No entanglement. Harry wasn't part of the business structure. He wasn't protected by it either. Financial experts don't call that coincidence. They call it preparation. Assets were shielded, income streams separated, exposure minimized. It's the standard playbook for someone anticipating a future where joint finances become liabilities. And then came the PR move that made insiders sit up straight. Sunshine Sachs. You don't bring in crisis specialists unless you expect a crisis. Not months after the fact, before it breaks. 3 to 6 months ahead, exactly the window we're in now. Stories begin shifting, sympathies are quietly guided, narratives soften in one direction while pressure builds in another. This isn't reaction, it's positioning. Then the living situation cracks into public view. Harry stays at hotels despite owning a mansion. Separate rooms become separate lives. Insiders describe emotional exhaustion, isolation, confusion, and Harry, still fighting yesterday's battle, defends the past while the future is being quietly arranged without him. The most unsettling detail? His emotional breakdowns over media coverage from years before they even met. That's not anger. That's displacement. That's someone sensing loss without understanding its source. According to Bauer's timeline, what Harry signed in 2020 didn't just weaken him, it stripped him of leverage. If this ends, he doesn't walk away equal. He walks away diminished. Limited control, restricted future earnings, reduced authority over the very narrative he helped create. Meanwhile, Meghan walks away with the brand, the income streams, and the strategic upper hand already secured. This isn't a collapse happening in real time. This is the delayed execution of a plan set in motion years ago. And Harry may only now be realizing he's been playing a game whose rules were written without him fully reading them. The scariest part isn't the possibility of a split. It's that the split may have been structurally prepared years before either of them started living like a separated couple. Because once you look at the framework Bauer describes, everything Harry has done lately stops looking emotional and starts looking like the behavior of someone who senses the ground shifting under his feet but can't find the fault line. He's been restless, traveling more, staying away from the house, surrounding himself with old friends again, quietly, almost like someone retracing steps to a life that felt stable. Meanwhile, Meghan's public appearances have taken on a different energy. Less royal rebel duo, more solo operator. Independent meetings. Independent projects. Independent branding. Two people once inseparable in public now orbiting separate professional worlds. And if Bauer's interpretation of the 2020 restructuring is accurate, that distance isn't just emotional, it's strategic insulation. Because when a relationship at that level ends, the real war isn't fought in interviews. It's fought in paperwork. Who owns the production deals? Who controls the foundation? Who has authority over unreleased content? Who can tell their version of events without breaching agreements? According to Bauer, those questions were answered before anyone knew they needed answering. If that structure holds, Harry's ability to profit from future tell-alls, documentaries, or memoir follow-ups could be severely limited. The narrative rights may not sit where people assume. And in a world where personal story equals financial power, losing control of your own narrative is like losing oxygen. Meanwhile, Meghan's separate ventures create something powerful: independence without legal entanglement. If those businesses remain solely under her control, they exist outside the blast radius of any division of shared assets. That's not emotional distance. That's financial firewalling. And then there's the PR choreography, subtle but unmistakable to those who know the pattern. Sympathy arcs don't appear overnight. They're built, carefully, through selective visibility, controlled leaks, curated appearances. The goal isn't to win an argument, it's to win the future perception of why things ended. Because in high-profile separations, perception is currency. Harry, by contrast, appears stuck in reaction mode, responding to criticism, defending the past, still fighting the media war that defined their early years. But the battlefield may have shifted without him noticing. While he's arguing about headlines, the real decisions are being made in conference rooms, law offices, and branding meetings. Bauer's warning, at its core, isn't about villain or victim. It's about asymmetry. One side, he suggests, has been planning for every outcome. The other may have believed planning for the end meant admitting failure and avoided looking too closely. That difference in mindset can decide everything. If the separation scenario Bauer outlines ever becomes reality, the consequences would go far beyond heartbreak headlines. There would be negotiations over intellectual property, brand ownership, production contracts, foundation control, and possibly international legal complexities given Harry's unique status. It wouldn't be a tabloid divorce. It would be a corporate dissolution with emotional casualties. And here's where it becomes almost tragic. Harry left behind the monarchy, the institution, the safety net, all in the name of building a new life defined by love and freedom. But institutions, for all their flaws, are built to absorb risk. Private life isn't. In the private world, contracts replace tradition, clauses replace courtiers, and if you don't read them closely, they can define your future more than any vow. Bauer's narrative paints a picture of a man who thought he was stepping into a partnership and may have unknowingly stepped into a structure where the exit doors were not placed equally. Still, it's important to remember these are claims, interpretations, and reported findings, not confirmed legal disclosures. The full truth of any marriage lives behind doors the public never sees. But patterns speak, timelines speak, behavior shifts speak, and right now those signals are louder than they've ever been. If the coming months bring formal announcements, many will act shocked. But others, the ones who followed the business moves, the PR signals, the legal restructuring timeline, may see it not as a sudden collapse, but as the final chapter of a plan set quietly in motion years ago. The question that lingers isn't just whether the marriage survives. It's whether Harry, looking back, will realize the most important decision wasn't leaving the palace. It was what he signed after he left.